All right. Now, we're not just living in the gym, we're living in the kitchen. We're living life, which means that we have to consider lifestyle. First thing to consider, when am I going to train? Doesn't matter. You flipped a switch. So no matter what else happens in your world, you're getting it done. Morning, really great time to do that. The earlier, the better. Because then it's done. You've eaten the frog, and you will feel awesome all throughout your day. If it doesn't happen in the morning, well, that means it's either got to be slotted into the middle of the day or it's got to happen at the end of the day. When you flip a switch, it doesn't, those considerations, they all just disappear. It's just getting done. So there are benefits to lifting in the morning. That energy, I mentioned the fact that it's already checked off the list, useful. Midday can be good because your body is more woken up. The fluid that builds up during sleep has been drained. You're just more alert, more coordinated, more able to express power. Your body, however, will adapt to whatever you're telling it, to whatever you're signaling to it that it needs to adapt to. So maybe your morning workouts feel a little rusty or dusty, or they're tough initially, but you will soon adapt to that. This is like training fasted. Your lifts initially might go down, but then eventually it will balance out and you'll be right where you want to be, right where you should be. I love lifting in the evening. But when I started tracking my sleep, what I noticed, two things. Because I also love eating a huge meal at night. My sleep suffers, my recovery, the quality of my sleep suffers a lot. Metrically, you can see this when I train at night within 3 to 4 hours of going to sleep. Same thing with eating a big meal at night. So I've just noticed that and adapted. So the training is getting done no matter what because you flipped a switch. How much sleep should you be getting? I have had great results operating on 5 and 6 hours of sleep for months at a time. The reason that I am moving away from that is not cognitive and it's not output based. It's because I got a DEXA scan, which I do regularly, and noticed that my visceral body fat was increasing. Do not like that. Visceral body fat is the most important metric in the DEXA scan for your overall health. Well, guess what impacts visceral body fat? How much you're sleeping. And I was sleeping well, again, because I measure this. I know. So you want to aim for as much sleep as you can possibly get. Inside of that, what's important to consider there is the things that make sleep simple. Best practices would be number one, going to sleep at the same time or relatively the same time. But even more important than that would be waking up at a consistent time every single day. When you wake up, go outside, get some sunlight into your eyes directly. 15 minutes. 10, 15 minutes. This is going to help to anchor and ground, set the circadian rhythm, which is your body's sleep-wake energy clock. When you go out to eat, you adhere to the same framework as we've previously established. Protein dominant, never full, never hungry. Protein dominant just means I'm going to have some pizza. Great. Have some pizza. Go get a chicken breast. 2 chicken breasts. A great example of this is I love to get almond croissants. I love almond croissants. If I eat an almond croissant, I go to a bodega or I stop back here, mix up some protein powder or have some non-fat Greek yogurt of about 50 to 75 grams, because that's at least a 1-to-1 on the protein to carbs. Other things to consider with lifestyle would be ways to suppress appetite. Caffeine, amazing. Use it. Stimulants keep you closer to God and they raise your metabolic rate. Caffeine, nicotine. If you want to get into the more hardcore areas, Broncaid, available over the counter at Walgreens, CVS, etc. Broncaid is great. You mix Broncaid with some caffeine, go do your morning fasted cardio. Perfect. Speaking of fasting, that could be a part of your lifestyle. It's not a dogma that I adhere to, or it's not something that I adhere to dogmatically anymore, but there was a time and a place for it in my life, and it was very beneficial. The biggest use of it, though, is to train yourself to delay gratification in that realm that's so easily accessible and feels so good for us. Food. That's so uncomfortable when you're in the discomfort, especially initially. But if you can get used to hunger, get used to saying, oh, this is like a temporary feeling. If I wait 5 minutes or drink some water, it will pass. Speaking of drinking water, I suppose I haven't finished on fasting yet. If you are going to fast, here's what I'd recommend. I fasted for 5 years until I did this. Not 5, I didn't fast, not eat for 5 years, but I had been practicing various types of fasts for 5 years, and then I started adding electrolytes to the water that I was consuming, and my fast got way easier. So add some electrolytes. I prefer Source Minerals, not affiliated, did some UGC for them. That's it. That's how I found out about them. They're awesome. Awesome. I also like Relight by Redmond Real Salts. Just throw some scoops into your water throughout the day. You're good. Whenever you start to get hungry or feel cravings while fasting, just do that. Which leads me to what I was getting at, which is when you feel hungry, first, drink 20 ounces of water. Wait 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then say, do I still feel hungry, or did I have palate boredom? After you eat, go for a walk. This really helps with digestion, and it also helps to keep you insulin sensitive. That just means helps your body to know what to do with the energy, with the fuel that you have just consumed. And it's also going to increase your NEAT, your step count, help you get closer to that 20,000. You also want to make sure that you are getting as much sun as possible. Sun reduces appetite, improves mood and focus, gets you tan. Everybody looks better with a tan. And there is some research or some paper out there that showed something along the lines of sunlight essentially shrinking brown adipose tissue, which is what we call body fat. I don't recall the specifics of that, but anecdotally, I absolutely notice that the more time that I spend in the sun, not just appear to be leaner, but I am leaner. There's really something to that. Get as much sun as possible. It feels good to be outside. If you are going to be drinking, here's what you need to know. I no longer drink. That actually has nothing to do with fitness. But when I was partying hard, I was still plenty ripped. What you got to know is this. The booze itself has a impact on your sleep, on your hormone levels, on your overall caloric intake for the day. But what gets most people, two things: what they are tempted to eat when they are a little bit drunk, and the increased likelihood that you will skip the next day's training because you are a little bit hungover. So, number one, because you flipped a switch, you don't miss. That second thing doesn't matter. First one, we're all human. So, first thing you want to do is reduce, or rather just eliminate, mixed drinks. If you're going to get a margarita, that tequila mix, that margarita mix is just pure sugar. So just get the booze and then the lime and the salt. Tequila, salt, lime. That's it. And you've saved a whole bunch of calories. Whiskey sour. Sour mix, same thing. Whiskey or bourbon. Lemon. Squeeze. Now you're good. Beer. Beer is good. Beer was good. Drink less of it. Be mindful. I don't know. It just adds in more calories because it's not pure liquor. So be doubly mindful of all of this when you're drinking beer. But when you're drinking, then, what you don't want to do is go eat a whole pizza, because remember, we have a thin margin for error on our deficit. You want to consider that liquor is basically serving as not protein, so it's either like carb or fat. It's technically like somewhere in between those two. It's like its own fourth macro, but just consider it carb or fat, which means, great, we have carb or fat at a meal. What else do we need? Protein, and just protein. So order some chicken breasts, or go run out to the 7-Eleven and grab a couple of 40-gram Fairlifes, the 42-gram Fairlifes. It ain't sexy, but it's what you got to do. It's not that hard. The worst thing that happens is what? Somebody goes, what are you doing? You're not going to have this whole pizza? You're going to have a chicken breast with your booze? You're like, yeah, dude. So I don't eat that pizza because I want to be ripped. What? For most people, it's this idea of what are other people going to say? Well, what are they going to say? Play out that worst case scenario in your head. Yeah, dude. I'm being super intentional. Yeah, dude. I'm locking in. Why aren't you? Flip it back on them. All right, y'all. Lock in. Let's go.